The fog rolled in like a damp shroud, casting a chilling gloom over the city streets. I stood at the edge of the precinct, a cold breeze whipping my coat as I gazed out into the mist-shrouded distance. The night air clung to me like a damp mitten, heavy with the scent of wet earth and decay. As I turned to enter the precinct, a faint scratching echoed through the night air, sending a shiver down my spine. The sound seemed to come from the very walls themselves, a desperate clawing that made my skin crawl. I quickened my pace, the scratching growing louder with every step. The precinct's fluorescent lights cast an eerie glow over the empty halls, making the shadows dance like dark specters on the walls. I felt like I was walking into a trap, every creak of the floorboards making me jump. My partner, Detective Rodriguez, waited for me in the dimly lit break room, a cup of coffee in hand. "Hey, partner," he said, his voice low and smooth. "I've got a case for you." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite the creeping sense of unease that had settled in the pit of my stomach. Rodriguez handed me a folder, the words, "Missing Person," scribbled on the cover in bold letters. But as I opened the folder, I realized this wasn't just any missing persons case. The victim was a young woman named Sarah, and she was expected to disappear, tomorrow. I stared at Rodriguez, aghast. "You're kidding me, right?" I asked, but he just shook his head. According to the file, Sarah had been receiving strange phone calls and emails in the days leading up to her disappearance. The messages were always the same: "You'll never see me again." I felt a chill run down my spine as I read the words, the scratching sound from outside growing louder in my mind. As I delved deeper into the case, I started to feel a creeping sense of dread. It was as if I was walking into a nightmare from which I couldn't wake up. Every step I took seemed to lead me further down a rabbit hole of terror, with no escape in sight. I spent the rest of the night poring over the evidence, trying to make sense of the bizarre phone calls and emails. But the more I read, the more I realized that something was off. The messages were always phrased in a way that seemed deliberate. As if someone was trying to tell me something. And then, just as I was about to give up for the night, I stumbled upon a security camera feed that made my blood run cold. Sarah was seen walking out of her apartment building, a look of utter terror on her face. But that wasn't the worst part. She was walking out, into the fog. I felt a scream building in my throat as I watched the feed, the scratching sound from outside growing louder still. It was as if the very walls were closing in on me, trying to trap me in this living nightmare. And then, just as suddenly, everything went black. I stumbled back into the precinct, my heart racing with fear. Rodriguez was waiting for me, a look of concern etched on his face. "Hey, partner, what's wrong?" he asked, but I just shook my head. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. And that's when I saw it, the folder on the counter, the words, "Missing Person," scrawled on the cover in bold letters. But something was off. The name wasn't Sarah. It was mine. And the date wasn't tomorrow. It was today.